Hello students, welcome back to your history class. Today I will do a quick revision of the chapter 3 orders and then discuss a few question and answers with you all. I remember not being able to share the notes of this chapter with you all, but I'm not certain. I would kindly request you all to get in touch with me over WhatsApp, personal chats, and let me know if I'm correct or not. If I have not discussed the notes with you all, I will do so as soon as I finish the question and answers. Please let me know whatever it is. I think we had completed the notes of the Central Islamic lands and the 3 orders was pending. All right, without wasting more time, with our examinations coming up, we have terminal examinations and I have 4 chapters. You all must have received a blueprint of the paper, so you all know which kind of questions will come. All right, so we can start preparing accordingly. We'll start with this chapter. 3 orders. So in this revision, I'm going to be doing introduction first, which is the socio-economic and the political changes that occurred in the Western Europe between the 9th and the 16th century. That is what this entire chapter focuses on. Basically, the chapter focuses on 3 social categories, that is the Christian priests, the land-owning nobles, and the peasants, and the changing relationship between these groups, how the relationship changed. The term feudalism is being used by the historians to describe the economic, legal, political, and social relationships that existed in Europe in the medieval era. Feudalism is a German word. Feud means a piece of land. It refers to a kind of society that existed in France and later it spread to England and the southern Italy. In the economic sense, it refers to a kind of agricultural production which is based on relationships between lords and peasants. So there was a feudal society we've spoken about where the king was on the top and then there were nobles and lords and then there were knights and then there were peasants and serfs. The king, that is, he owned all the land in the country and he made the laws. He gave an area of land which is called fief to rich landlords and nobles. Okay, and in return, these nobles agreed to supply the king with soldiers and horses for his army. Now, how did these people supply these king, soldiers and horses? So the nobles started to give some land to professional soldiers, okay, and in return, these soldiers used to fight. In return, these knights fought for the nobles and the kings. Okay, this is a very good pyramid. I want you all to draw the same pyramid in your notebooks. I know it is a little blurred, but if you pay attention and look clearly, everything is very readable. I will still highlight all the points that I want you all to specifically draw in your notebooks. Okay, so in return, the knights fought for the nobles and the kings. Now, what did the peasants do? The peasants, they worked on the land that these soldiers or these knights had. So the peasants worked worked on the land for the nobles and the knights, and in turn they were offered protection. All right. So look, why I really appreciate this diagram and why I want you all to draw it is because here we have the king, and what is he giving? He's giving vassals. Vassals is the land. Okay, he's giving vassals. Okay, fief and presents, he's giving vassals, and in return, the lords are giving vassals to the king. Sorry, vassals are the people who fight. I'm so sorry. So they give vassals to the king, and the king is giving them land. So in return, what does the king get? King gets loyalty and he gets military aid. Okay, going down, these arrows are the most important. What do these nobles and these lords, what are they doing? They're giving this piece of land to a few of the soldiers. So what are they giving? They're giving them food, they are giving them protection, and they are giving them shelter. And in return, what do they want? They want the right, and they want military service. Okay, and further on, these people, because now they have lands, they need people to work on this land. So these are peasants. Again, they are further giving food, protection, and shelter to the peasants. And the peasants, they are paying rent, and they are working on that piece of land. Okay, and they are working on their piece of land. So this was the entire relationship of the feudal society. All right, so I have got a clearer picture for you. Okay, so this entire diagram with these arrows, okay, these arrows that you see are not there over there, you will add those. This is just a clear picture for you all to understand. Exactly like this, you're going to draw it in your notebooks, and this diagram can come in your examination. I can ask you to draw and depict the feudal system, the feudal society. Okay. Okay, moving on. Then there were three orders. The French priests believed in the concept that people were the members of the three orders depending on their work. The three orders of the society were clergy, nobility, and peasantry. So the first order, that was clergy. So the Catholic Church had their own laws and their own lands given to which were given to the church by the rulers, and they could levy taxes on it. The Christians in Europe were guided by the bishops and the clerics. These people, they constituted the first order. Most of the villages had their own church, where over here the people came on Sunday together to listen to the priest, and they prayed together. Women could not become priests, and men who became priests could not marry. So the use of the term Lord for God is taken from the feudal elite. See, only men here. Okay, second order was the nobility. Now the priests, they placed themselves in the first order and nobles in the second order. The big landowners, that is the nobles, the landlords you can say, they were the vassals of the king, and the peasants were the vassals of the landowners. The noble was the lord of the people who settled in his land. Now, noble's house was called as the manor, and his private land was cultivated by the peasants. So we learned so many things here. The noble's house is called the manor. So we have learned about the manor houses. I had asked you all to draw a manor house, and even write down about a day if you were to live in such a manor house. Then we had the big landowners. We had the nobles. We know that the nobles were the vassals of the king, and the peasants were the vassals of the landowners. Okay, so here you can see they're all standing in line against for the king. So they probably come here to see them. Third order was the peasants. Now these were the last people. The cultivators were of two kinds. There were free peasants, and then there were serfs. Now free peasants, they held their farms as tenants of the lord, and the men had to render military service. That is, at least 45 days every year they had to give military service. The peasants were required to do any unpaid labor service like digging ditches or gathering firewood or building fences or repairing roads and buildings, and no money was given to them in return. There was one direct tax called tailed that kings only sometimes imposed on the peasants. Now we spoke about the manorial estates also, and we know that the house of the landlords was called the manor. So a lord, his own manor house, he also controlled villages. So some people had entire villages under them. Some lords controlled hundreds of villages where peasants lived. A small manorial estate could contain 1 around a dozen of families, and a larger estate might include 50 or 60 families. Everything that was needed in daily life was found in the estate. Grain was grown in the field. Blacksmiths and carpenters maintained the lord's implements and also repaired his weapons. And stone masons looked after his buildings. So he had everyone. These manorial estate people, like what luxury, they had everyone in their manor. They had everything that they needed daily in their manorial estate. Women were, used to spin and weave fabrics, and children worked in the lord's wine presses. So children used to press the wine, wine pressing, they would do that. Now, who were the knights? From 9th century, there were frequent local wars in Europe, and the amateur peasant soldiers were not sufficient, and a good cavalry was needed. So what happened is, in the middle, from the 9th century, the amount of wars in Europe increased, and because of this, the peasants who used to become soldiers when required, they had to serve 45 days. So when they went, it was not sufficient. Like, they did not have the correct skill, they did not have the correct equipments. So that's why there arose a need for a good cavalry of soldiers. So they were linked to the lords, just as the lords were linked to the king. So the lord, he gave knight a piece of land which was called fief and promised to protect it. So in France, from the 12th century, minstrels traveled from manor to manor, singing songs which told stories about historical stories, or partly invented, about the brave kings and knights. So this is how we know, this is our source. It extended to anything between 1,000 to 2,000 acres or more, including a house for the knight and his family, the land that they were given. A church was also there, and other establishments to house his dependents, that is his family members, besides a watermill and a wine press. So they gave them, so these landlords, they had manorial estates, and they also gave a good estate to the knight. Of course, not as big as them, but a decent stuff which had enough place for him and his family to live. There was a church given, and there was a watermill also given, and a wine press also given. So everything was covered. Now, who are the monks? Now, this is the nobility. So they lived in the religious communities called abbeys or monasteries, and these were often in far off places from the human habitation. Two of the more well-known monasteries were established by Saint Benedict in Italy in 529, and Cluny in Burgundy in 910. Now, men became monks and women became nuns. Even today, it's the same. Like priests, monks and nuns did not marry. They contributed to the development of arts. Now, what was the environment like? Now, from 5th to 10th century, most of the Europe was covered with vast forests. The land available for agriculture was limited. So from the 11th century, Europe entered a warm phase. Average temperatures increased, which had a profound effect on agriculture. Look at the crises of the 14th century. So by the early 14th century, Europe's economic expansion slowed down. In the 13th century, the warm summers of the previous years had given way to bitterly cold summers. So the season of growing crops were reduced by a month. And the ships came and they carried rats with them, and these rats, they brought a deadly bubonic plague infection. This was called the Black Death. So serious imbalances were created between the agriculture and the manufacturing. So this is the crisis of the 14th century. Okay, so in the 14th century, Europe's economic expansion had slowed down, and those warm summers that they had changed to bitter colds, And so what happened is in the cold, the crops don't grow. In summers, crops grow. So the growing season of the crops reduced by a month. And also the ships that came, they brought along a rat. And this rat brought along a bubonic plague. What were the political changes? Now, development in the political sphere was parallel to the social processes. In the 15th and the 16th centuries, emergence of triumphant rulers in Europe was stimulated by the social changes of 13th and 14th centuries as the feudal system weakened. Both the powerful new estates and the economic changes that were occurring were significant for Europe. The historians called these kings the new monarchs. The kings like Louis XI in France, Maximilian in Austria, Henry VIII in England, and Isabel and Ferdinand in Spain were absolute monarchs. They started the process of organizing standing armies, which is a permanent bureaucracy and national taxation. In Spain and France began to play a role in the European expansion over seas. So all these things helped in expanding Europe over seas. Okay. So sorry this happened. All right. So with this, I end today's class for you all. Remember, you all have to get back to me and let me know if I had shared any notes of the three orders with you all. If not, it will be done as soon as I get to know, like, what is, I am recording these videos 1 week in advance from you all. So I will have completed quite a few videos by the time you get back to me. So as soon as you get back to me with it, I will do those videos. So with this, I end today's class. I hope you all have started to study now. The 2 chapters you all did, I was not happy with the answers that you all have been giving me. I want to give you all some, I will do an entire video on how to write the examination for the next time, because I'm expecting a better paper from you all. And this time I will make the paper in which you all will handwrite the answers down. Okay, so and don't do it in your notebooks. I want separate pages. I want separate full skip pages, and I want you all to write down, you know, the name, date, everything on that. Scan it very neatly and upload it. All right. So I'm going to be, you know, getting back to you with this. We are going to do a special video on how to write these examinations, because I thought typing would be good, but I'm not happy with your performance. This periodic, this unit test one. All right. So this I end today's class. Stay home, stay safe, take care, and keep learning. Thank you.